Sunday morning, December 3rd, 2023, 10:30 a.m. We are having, and have been having, a rainy, dismal, gloomy Sunday morning. I've already been out to feed the critters this morning, and thoughts began to erupt through my mind. Now, I am not going to speak of the weather today, and I am not going to speak of the critters today, otherwise the feedings. I am not going to speak on sky observations today. Why? Well, you can see why. But I am going to have a little bit of a Sunday sermon, considering what we cannot see, which is space. So as I'm sitting here in bed earlier, doing a little bit of research, if you will, I grabbed my Bible because I wanted to look up a couple of verses for reference, and something struck me. If memory serves right, and throughout my life, within the first chapter of this book, Genesis, it speaks of the creations through God. And something that I noticed was that throughout each verse, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light, and God saw the light. And it just keeps going on about light, 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 all the way through. And as memory serves me correctly, it used to state that God created the sun and the stars. Mind you, sun. But here it states, "And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night, and he made the stars also." It no longer says anything about the sun. Is this yet another Mandela effect that is affecting the books within this book of books? Do you remember this book, this chapter, saying sun? I do, but now it says nothing but light. Now think about this and think about what I have spoken of in past episodes and why people are now starting to state ball of light and not sun anymore. Just take a moment and contemplate this. So through my contemplations and ponderings of thought, I have to ask myself, okay, so what transpired in order for the wordings to change within this chapter of explanation in regards to the so-called sun? Now, let's go back a few videos to where I expressed my opinion about this place that we live called Earth, or so that's what we know it as, and how I stated that there's a possibility that through technologies today that we had to avoid a certain cataclysmic event in order to avoid complete destruction of this place that we call home, in which we had to avert that destruction and basically relocate where we live. Now, the reason why I had to do this little bit of research and why I looked this up is because I wanted to find that exact verse of where it stated that God created the sun and the stars, because that was a verse that always was complexing to me, because I wanted to know what the difference was between the sun and the stars. Because science tells us that the sun is a star and that the stars are, in fact, suns. So you have to take that into consideration right there. And furthermore, in many other past countries and cultures, the sun was referred to as a disk. Okay, so within Egyptology, and I want to say within the Aztecs and Mayans and some of the others, they also considered the sun, they would call it a disk, and which we also have that term solar disk. Okay, now, because of that, that is part of the argumentation between the shape of this place that we call home, whether it is spherical or flat. And I'll go into that in a future video as far as my thoughts regarding those two hypotheses of the shape of this earth. So I'm going to try to keep this short and let you just, like I said, ponder your own thoughts over all of this, what I have pointed out here. And I am going to further point out a little bit of this phasing of Earth to avoid catastrophe, cataclysm, and destruction by having you view one of my past videos from 2020, and in fact it was in October 3rd of 2020 at approximately 1 a.m. where I woke up and just had this uncanny feeling to grab my phone and go outside and do some recording in which we were having a harvest moon. And behind the moon was very visible another celestial object, which I misidentified in the recording. I was still half asleep, mind you, and I was calling it the planet Mercury, where in fact, well, supposedly, in fact, it was the planet Mars. Now, that begs me to ask you this question. Have you been watching the planets of late? Do they seem much closer and larger in size than ever before? Well, this is how I took that sighting back in 2020. It was too large. It did not appear right. Something seemed off. Something seemed shifted. So please take a minute, click on that first link, and go to my past video just to see what this looks like. And then I am going to include two other links that goes to one of my favorite series, TV series, Stargate SG-1, and the predictive programming. And if you know my channel and if you have seen the videos in the past to where I have spoken of this program and the conspiracies revolving around this program and the characters and actors involved and all that, you will understand that much more over what I am getting at. But I am going to include two links that will direct you to two of the episodes within that series that basically talk. Those two episodes are about phasing or shifting of locations, and which one is the shifting of an asteroid because it is on a collision course with the planet Earth. The second, or should I say actually the third link, but the second link to the series is about a different planet and the phasing process and what happened. Now, the first episode that the second link will take you to is an episode that was entitled Failsafe. The third link, which is to the second episode of Stargate SG-1 that I am directing you to, is entitled Red Sky. Now, if you will read those descriptions of those two episodes, then you might understand a little bit more of the predictive programming that I speak of, as well as other factors and aspects of which I speak. But I want you to know that I am very upset now that I have come across the factor that nowhere in this first chapter does it state the sun any longer. It only says the light over and over and over, and I personally do not remember nor recall so much wording of the light, whether it is the greater light or lesser light. It was the sun and stars. And here it says, He made the stars also. I can't wrap my head around it. This is just another act of the confusion and chaos that we are being struck by today. Now I want to ask you, can you still have faith in this? If you understand what I am speaking of, ask yourself, can you still have faith in these stories and these words, which our history here in the United States is based upon? The history of the world and many factors is based upon these words. But yet these words are changing and have been changing right along. And you might claim, oh, well, I don't use the King James Version Bible. Well, where do you think your Bible, the easy reading Bibles of today, originated from? Yeah, it's the same. Books. Just easier reading because they have changed the wordings. Well, apparently that is what has happened here, but it's through quantum physics and mechanics, through the ripple effect that the time loop has created. If you don't know what I'm speaking of there, go to my second channel, Dragonfire Investigative Research. I explain as much as I can. And if you haven't caught on now, and you're a long time subscriber or viewer of my channel, either get on board or jump ship. I'm calling it as I see it. My channel is about observations for the most part. And when it comes to certain things like this, I'm serious and I'm firm and stern with my thoughts, my opinions, and what I share and speak of. So please, take time and do your own thinking and not just regurgitated thought process from what you've heard Sunday after Sunday after Sunday after Sunday. And that's my sermon for today. Please check out the links provided. And once again, please take time to think. Have a great one. We'll see you on the flip side.